the day my family sold my dream beach house. I wasn't even invited to say goodbye. I found out through a photo, a smiling selfie, champagne glasses raised, the ocean glowing gold behind them, my mother, my father, my older brother standing on the balcony of the only place that ever felt like home. The caption? New beginnings. New beginnings. For them, not for me. That beach house wasn't just property. It was where I learned to walk on warm sand, where my dad once carried me on his shoulders into the waves, where I whispered my biggest dreams to the ocean at 16, promising myself I'd build something bigger than this small town life. And they sold it, behind my back, without a call, without a warning, without my name even mentioned, even though it was supposed to be mine. I was 21 years old when I realized something brutal. Family can betray you more quietly than enemies. They didn't think I'd fight back. They thought I was still the emotional, naive girl who cried on the beach when life felt unfair. They forgot something. The ocean doesn't just witness tears, it witnesses promises. And that night, staring at that photo, I didn't cry. I opened my laptop. I checked my accounts. I made one phone call. Because if my family thought selling my dream would break me, they were about to watch me buy it back, in cash. And this time, it wouldn't belong to them. It would belong to me. My name is Alexa. I'm 21 years old, and the beach house was never just a house. It was the only place where I ever felt chosen. The house stood on the quiet edge of the shoreline, white wooden walls, slightly weathered by salt air, wide windows that captured every sunrise, and a long wooden balcony that stretched toward the ocean like open arms. When the tide came in at night, you could hear the waves breathe against the shore, slow, steady, alive. That sound raised me. Every summer, my family packed our lives into suitcases and drove 6 hours to that house. The moment we arrived, I would run barefoot across the warm sand, as if the ocean had been waiting just for me. When I was 7, my father lifted me onto his shoulders and walked into the shallow waves. I remember gripping his hair and laughing while the water splashed against us. "One day," he said, smiling at the horizon, "this will be yours, Alexa." I believed him the way only a child can believe something, without doubt. That promise rooted itself inside me. At 13, I started treating the beach house like it already belonged to me. I rearranged furniture. I convinced my mom to let me paint the guest room a soft seafoam blue. I collected seashells and sold handmade bracelets to tourists, just so I could buy new curtains for the living room. My brother Ryan laughed at me. "You act like you own the place." I used to smile and say, "One day I will." But as I grew older, I began noticing things I hadn't seen before. The beach house wasn't just a home to my family. It was an asset. I first heard that word at 16. Asset. Dad's business had started struggling. He tried to hide it, but tension lingered in the air like humidity before a storm. Phone calls got shorter. Dinners got quieter. My mother started talking about cutting unnecessary expenses. One night, while the sunset burned orange across the water, Ryan said it casually. "We should sell this place." The words hit me like ice water. Dad didn't respond at first. "It's just sitting here," Ryan continued. "We could reinvest. Be smart about it." I remember standing up so suddenly, my chair scraped against the wooden floor. "It's not just sitting here," I snapped. "It's ours." Ryan looked at me the way older brothers do when they think you're naive. "You're emotional," he said. "It's property." No, it was more than wood and land and market value. It was the only place where my parents didn't fight. The only place where Dad smiled without forcing it. The only place where I felt seen. That night, I sat alone on the sand long after everyone went to bed. The moon reflected silver across the ocean, and I made myself a promise. If they ever tried to take this away from me, I would fight. When I turned 18, I left for university. I chose a city far from home, but close enough to visit the beach house whenever I needed to breathe. At least that was the plan. But slowly, something shifted. Whenever I asked about the house, my mom would say, "Everything's fine." Whenever I suggested visiting, Dad would say, "Not this month." Ryan stopped arguing about selling it, which strangely scared me more than when he did. Silence is louder than conflict. During my second year of university, I started building something of my own. I freelanced as a digital designer. Nights turned into early mornings as I learned about investments, markets, and online ventures. I wasn't reckless. I was strategic. While they saw me as the sensitive youngest daughter, I was learning how money moved. And then came the day everything collapsed. It was a random Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting in a café near campus, half listening to music through my headphones when my phone buzzed. It was a photo, posted by my mother. My heart stopped. There they were, Mom, Dad, and Ryan, standing on the balcony of the beach house. But the balcony looked different. The furniture was gone, the walls behind them were stripped clean, and behind them stood a couple I didn't recognize, champagne glasses raised, smiling. The caption read, "New beginnings." I stared at the image until my vision blurred. New beginnings. For who? I called my mother immediately. "Why does it look empty?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. A pause. Then she sighed. "Alexa, we sold it." The world didn't shatter loudly. It went silent. "You sold it?" I whispered. "It was the right financial decision," she replied calmly. "You're young. You don't understand these things yet." When I hung up, my hands were shaking. They didn't tell me. They didn't warn me. They didn't even give me the chance to say goodbye. The house my father promised would be mine. The place where I built my childhood. Gone. Sold 3 weeks ago. I found out through a photo. That night I didn't cry. I went back to my apartment, locked the door, and opened my laptop. I searched the property records. It had sold below market value, fast transaction, which meant one thing, desperation. The buyers? Real estate investment couple known for quick renovations and high profit resales, which meant something else. The house wasn't permanent in their hands. It was temporary. Temporary things can be reversed. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen as numbers began forming in my mind. Savings, investments, liquid assets. For 2 years, I had quietly built more than my family knew, more than they expected. They thought I was just a student chasing grades and dreams. They didn't know I was chasing independence. And as the reality of betrayal settled into something cold and sharp inside me, I understood something clearly. They didn't sell the house because they had to. They sold it because they thought I didn't matter in the decision. Because I was the youngest. Because I was a girl. Because I would get over it. I closed my laptop slowly and walked to my window. The city lights flickered below, but all I could see was the ocean in my memory, the balcony, the promise, my father's voice saying, "One day, this will be yours." Fine. If he couldn't keep his promise, I would make it true myself. And this time, it wouldn't be because someone handed it to me. It would be because I took it back, in cash. The betrayal didn't make me scream. It made me quiet. And quiet girls are dangerous when they finally stop asking for permission. For 3 days after I found out about the sale, I didn't call anyone. Not my mom, not my dad, not Ryan. I didn't post anything. I didn't react. I watched. I researched. I calculated. The buyers were a real estate couple, known for flipping properties. Fast. Renovate. Restage. Resell. Maximum emotional appeal. Maximum profit. Minimum attachment. To them, my beach house wasn't a memory. It was margin. They had already listed renovation updates online. Fresh white paint, modern glass railings on the balcony, new hardwood floors replacing the old creaking planks I used to run across barefoot. Every update felt like someone rewriting my childhood. But instead of crying, I opened spreadsheets. Over the last 2 years, I had built something my family never noticed. While they were busy deciding my future without me, I was building one without them. Freelance design projects had turned into retainer clients. Retainers turned into partnerships. I had invested early into 2 tech startups. One of them exploded faster than anyone expected. Crypto trades, smart exits, risk managed, quiet wins. They saw a 21-year-old girl. They never saw the numbers. I reviewed my accounts carefully. Liquid funds, assets I could sell without destabilizing my portfolio. If I moved strategically, I could make a serious offer, not an emotional offer. A business offer. But revenge isn't just about money. It's about timing. I drove home that weekend, not to argue, to observe. When I walked into the house, our city house, the air felt different, lighter, as if something heavy had already been removed. "Alexa?" my mom said, surprised but smiling too quickly. "You should have told us you were coming." I hugged her. She smelled the same, lavender and something familiar. For a second, I almost broke. Almost. Dad came into the room adjusting his watch. He avoided eye contact for half a second too long. "You're quiet," he said. "I'm learning," I replied. Ryan leaned against the kitchen counter, scrolling on his phone. "You'll thank us one day," he muttered. It was dead investment. I looked at him calmly. "Dead to who?" I asked. He didn't answer. That night, I overheard them talking in the living room. I wasn't meant to hear it. "We had no choice," Mom whispered. We did, Dad replied quietly. Just not the one she wanted. She's too attached. She needed to grow up. I stood at the top of the stairs, hands gripping the railing. Too attached? That's what they called loyalty now. The next morning, I sat across from Dad at the breakfast table. How much did it sell for? I asked casually. He hesitated. Why? I'm studying market trends, I lied smoothly. He gave me the number, below market value. Ryan had rushed the sale. I didn't react. I just nodded slowly, committing everything to memory. That afternoon, I drove to the beach. Not to the house, just to the shoreline. I stood far enough to see it in the distance. Scaffolding surrounded part of it. Workers moved in and out. The balcony looked unfamiliar with its new sleek railing. But the ocean was unchanged. The same waves, the same horizon, the same promise. I closed my eyes and remembered being 7 years old, believing my father completely. I wasn't that girl anymore. Now I believed in leverage. That evening, I made the call. I contacted the real estate agent listed under the renovation permit. I'm interested in the property, I said calmly. It's not on the market yet, she replied. I know, I said. But it will be. There was a pause. Yes, she admitted. In about 6 weeks. I'd like to make a pre-market offer. Silence again. What's your name? She asked. Alexa. She didn't recognize it. Good. Over the next 2 weeks, I moved pieces quietly. I liquidated one of my startup positions at peak valuation. Painful, but worth it. I rebalanced my portfolio, shifted assets, prepared capital. Every night, I checked renovation updates. New kitchen, modernized bedrooms. They were erasing my childhood, but they were increasing the property value, which meant my revenge would cost more. That was fine. Revenge, when done properly, is an investment. My family didn't call much during those weeks. Maybe they assumed I was sulking. Maybe they thought time would soften it. Time doesn't soften betrayal. It sharpens it. Then one evening, my mom sent me a message. We're hosting a small dinner next month. The new owners of the beach house might come. It's good networking. Networking. With the people who bought my dream. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I replied, sounds interesting. They had no idea what I was planning. No idea that while they toasted to smart decisions, I was preparing to undo one. 6 weeks passed. The listing went live. Price, significantly higher than what my family had sold it for. I didn't flinch. I made my offer the same day. Full asking price. All cash. No contingencies. The agent called within hours. The sellers are very interested, she said carefully. But they're curious why you want it. I looked out my apartment window at the distant city skyline. Tell them, I said softly, that some homes aren't investments. They're unfinished promises. There was a long silence on the other end. I'll pass that along, she replied. And as I ended the call, something steady settled inside me. They thought selling it would teach me detachment. Instead, it taught me power. And very soon, they were going to realize exactly who they underestimated. The acceptance email came at 2:17 p.m. I remember the exact time because I stared at the screen for a full minute before opening it. Your offer has been accepted. 4 words that felt heavier than the betrayal that started this war. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just leaned back in my chair and let the reality sink in. The beach house was coming back to me, not as a daughter waiting for a promise, but as a woman who bought it herself. All cash, no negotiations, no conditions. Power doesn't beg. It presents itself and waits. The closing process moved quickly. The investors were thrilled. A clean deal, fast profit, 0 complications. To them, I was just a serious young buyer with liquidity and urgency. They didn't know the urgency wasn't financial. It was personal. During those 2 weeks before closing, my family remained unaware. My mom texted about random things, recipes, relatives, dinner plans. Dad sent me a link about market corrections, as if he suddenly wanted to bond over investments. Ryan didn't text at all. I wondered if guilt kept him quiet, or pride. The dinner invitation approached. The same investors who bought my beach house were attending. My parents were excited. Networking, future deals, smart circles. The irony tasted sweet. The night of the dinner, I wore black. Simple, elegant, controlled. When I walked into the house, the air buzzed with polite laughter and clinking glasses. My mother was glowing with hostess energy. Dad stood straighter than usual, like he needed to prove something. And there they were, the couple who had renovated my childhood. standing in our living room, smiling. We just flipped the most beautiful oceanfront property, the woman was saying proudly. It's already under contract again. Under contract, my contract? I stepped forward. Actually, I said calmly, that would be me. The room shifted. My mother blinked. Alexa, what are you talking about? I turned to the couple and extended my hand. I'm the buyer. Recognition flashed in their eyes. You're Alexa? The man asked slowly. Yes. My father's face drained of color. You bought it? Ryan finally spoke, disbelief sharp in his voice. In cash, I replied evenly. Silence swallowed the room. My mom laughed nervously. That's not funny. I'm not joking. I pulled the email confirmation from my phone and handed it to Dad. He scanned it once, twice. His hand trembled slightly. You didn't tell us, he said. You didn't either, I answered. The investors shifted awkwardly, sensing tension they hadn't signed up for. Ryan scoffed. You're being dramatic. It's just a house. I looked at him, steady and unshaken. No, I said quietly. It was a promise. The room felt smaller. My mom's voice softened. Alexa, we sold it because we had to. You sold it because you thought I didn't matter in the decision. I corrected gently. Dad looked older in that moment. How could you afford it? He asked, almost to himself. I held his gaze. You taught me to be smart, I said. You just never noticed I was learning. The truth settled like dust. They had underestimated me so completely that my success felt impossible to them. The investors cleared their throats politely. Well, the woman said carefully, we're glad it's going to someone who appreciates it. Appreciates it. If only she knew. Dinner continued, but the atmosphere never recovered. Conversations felt forced. Smiles were strained. Every glance toward me carried something new. Confusion, regret, shock, and something else, fear. Because they were starting to understand this wasn't about property. It was about control. When the guests finally left, the house fell into heavy silence. Dad stood near the doorway, staring at me. Why? He asked quietly. Why go this far? I walked closer, lowering my voice. Because when you sold it, you didn't just sell wood and glass. You sold the only place I ever felt safe. My mom's eyes filled with tears. We never meant to hurt you. But you did, I said. Ryan crossed his arms. So what now? You own it. Congratulations. I looked at him steadily. Now, I replied, it's mine, not ours, mine. And for the first time in my life, the power dynamic had shifted. They could no longer make decisions for me. They could no longer dismiss me. They could no longer treat me like the emotional youngest daughter clinging to memories. Because I had turned memory into leverage, and leverage into ownership. As I left that night, Dad called my name softly. Alexa. I paused. He struggled for words. I'm all proud of you, he said. The words came too late. Pride doesn't erase betrayal, but it does acknowledge defeat. I walked out into the night air, feeling something unfamiliar. Not anger, not even satisfaction. Clarity. They sold my dream behind my back. I bought it back without asking permission. And this time, the beach house wouldn't just hold my childhood. It would hold my independence. And they would never again mistake my silence for weakness. The first time I walked back into the beach house as its legal owner, I didn't bring anyone with me. No family, no friends, no witnesses, just me. The keys felt heavier than they should have. Cold metal resting in my palm, proof that sometimes the only way to protect a promise is to fulfill it yourself. The front door opened smoothly. The investors had renovated everything. Fresh paint, polished floors, modern fixtures. The scent of new wood and clean linen filled the air. It looked beautiful, but unfamiliar. For a moment, I stood still in the doorway listening. The ocean was still there, breathing, unchanged. I stepped inside slowly, running my fingers along the kitchen counter. The old wooden table where we used to eat pancakes was gone. The creaky stair plank I used to skip over had been replaced. My childhood had been renovated, but something surprising happened. It didn't hurt the way I expected, because I wasn't here to relive the past. I was here to build something new. I walked out onto the balcony. The glass railing reflected the late afternoon sun, and the horizon stretched endlessly before me. The same horizon I stared at when I was 16, promising myself I would be strong. I kept my promise, I whispered to the wind. The ocean didn't answer. It didn't need to. That night I stayed alone in the house. I didn't turn on music. I didn't scroll through my phone. I just sat on the balcony floor, wrapped in a blanket, and thought about everything that had happened. I thought about the little girl who believed her father without question. I thought about the 17-year-old who feared losing everything. I thought about the 21-year-old who turned pain into strategy. And I realized something important. Buying the house back wasn't revenge. It was closure. Revenge would have been humiliating them. Revenge would have been throwing it in their faces every chance I got. But standing there alone, listening to the waves, I didn't feel the need to hurt them anymore. I had already won, not because I owned the property, but because I owned myself. A week later, my parents asked if they could visit. I hesitated. Then I said yes. They arrived quietly. No dramatic apologies. No grand speeches. Just 3 people standing, awkwardly in the living room of a house that used to belong to all of us. It looks different, Mom said softly. It is, I replied. Dad stepped onto the balcony, staring at the ocean the way he used to when I was little. You really did it, he murmured. Yes, I said. Ryan stayed inside at first, uncomfortable. Eventually, he joined us outside. I was wrong, he said bluntly, about you. It wasn't an emotional apology, but it was honest, and sometimes honesty is enough. We stood there together for a few minutes, watching the sunset. The sky turned shades of orange and pink, painting the water in gold. But something had changed. The house no longer felt like a fragile promise hanging over me. It felt like a foundation. After that visit, I made a decision. I converted part of the lower level into a small creative studio space, a place for young designers and digital creators to work during the summer. Affordable, accessible, inspiring. If this house had once been the place where I built my dreams, now it would help others build theirs. My family didn't object. They couldn't. It was my name on the deed. And that's when it truly sank in. Power isn't loud. It's quiet confidence backed by action. They underestimated me because I was young, because I was emotional, because I was the daughter. But emotion doesn't make you weak. It makes you passionate. And passion, when disciplined, becomes unstoppable. Sometimes people will sell your dreams behind your back. Sometimes the ones you trust most will choose convenience over loyalty. But what they can never control is how you respond. You can break, or you can build. I chose to build, not just the house, but myself. And every time I stand on that balcony now, I don't think about betrayal. I think about growth, because the most powerful revenge isn't destruction. It's elevation. They sold my dream beach house behind my back. I bought it back in cash. But what I really bought was my independence. And if you believe in turning pain into power, in rewriting your own ending, and in proving the world wrong when it underestimates you, please subscribe my channel.